Well, hi, friends. Happy Tuesday. How are y'all? Welcome to the table, the dreaming table. I'm going to try to play it so I can watch your comments. Okay. Hey. Okay. So, first of all, thanks for joining us. Making sure the sound doesn't come on. That would be bad. Oh, come on. We all ready to talk about leadership tonight? Okay.
Happy Tuesday.
Nope, that's weird. How do I make it silent, y'all?
Now we're going to talk about leadership tonight.
Oh, volume. Duh. Got it. Okay, now I have comments. And you guys. Okay. Hi, Megan from New Zealand. I'm so glad you're here. Now I try not to move y'all because that's annoying. So we have a lot to talk about tonight. Okay, from the hotel. Abby's going to World Tour tomorrow. That's amazing. Super fun. Hi, Jerry. I miss you, friend. Haven't talked in a while. So tonight, we are going to talk about leading. So first of all, welcome to the Dreaming Table. My name is Allison Dalkey. I'm so glad that you are here. My husband, Brian, and I have spent the last 11 and a half years figuring out how to run our business from home together. Lots of ups and downs, lots of adventures. And more than anything, we love having people at our table and helping share the things that we have learned with you. So tonight is all about leadership, and I'm really, really excited about it. I had one of those days where I wasn't really for sure sold on what I wanted to talk about. Okay, so we're going to talk about leadership tonight in a bunch of different areas. First of all, I want to encourage you that no matter where you're at, whether you do run a business, whether you are a mom, whether you're a wife, whether you're in a role at work where you're leading, or maybe not leading, maybe you're just in a role at work that doesn't feel like you're leading, I want to encourage you tonight and let you know that you are a leader and that there are things that you have been called and people that you have been called to lead. And so we're going to talk about that tonight and about what that looks like. And I will say that all of this information, and honestly, my inspiration for tonight came from my dear friend, Ethan Shockley, who is an incredible leader at such a young age. I say young age. He's in his mid-20s. He's incredible. He's amazing. And when you surround yourself with great people, then you get great information. So it's a good thing. So we're going to get started. What is it that makes a great leader, and how do you become one? I want to know if you would say, I feel like I'm supposed to be leading in some area of my life, but I don't know how, or I don't feel qualified. Maybe I feel like I'm supposed to be leading, but I don't know how, or I don't feel qualified. While you are responding to that, I want to do a quick recap. This weekend, we had one of our dream retreats here, which was honestly just a call that got put on our heart to have couples in our home and just people in general in our home at our table, which is why we've become really passionate about this table. And just to encourage them, to help them dream, to help them set plans and goals and get on the same page as a team, and actually have another one on the books. I will tell you it's in March, and we have all the details coming this week. Registration is actually going to open. So we're going to try to do 4 couples. We have done 4 in the past. 3 to 4 is like the number, but I think we're going to do 4, so it's going to be awesome. Hi, Rochelle. Rochelle's been at the table. She knows. It's awesome because of you. So let's talk about leadership. From your comments, hi, Mom. My mom helped this weekend, you guys, at our retreat. She was the host the hostess with the mostest. I forgot to tell you, Mom, that the guys were joking about you. The next day, they were like, she was amazing. Like, she was like a ninja. She would be behind me, like, can I get your plate? I'm like, she's amazing. She's awesome. So they all appreciated all your help. My mom did a fantastic job and made everybody feel welcome and kept us very full of snacks and food. So it was fun. Okay, let's get into leading. So I really believe that we're all called to our own form of leadership or our own leadership position. And it may be a formal position. It may be something in your business where you're actually in a leadership position and that's where you should be. It may be just in your motherhood. It may be being a wife. It may be in your church. It could be in your job that maybe wouldn't be considered a leadership position, but I would push you into saying that it probably is. So, but wherever you have found yourself, I really think that leadership is a part of your life and what we're called to. So in our business, in the direct sales world, leadership is the hardest position to be in. Being in that spot of leadership is one of the absolute hardest places to be. You have this personal business to run, and then you have this expectation to help others. It's totally up to you. What? Yeah. Okay. Ryan was asking me if he was like, you ever kidding? We didn't really talk about this. So you have a personal business to run. You have this expectation to help others run their businesses and do it well. And that leadership all begins with a title. And the title, I think, is honestly the problem sometimes. Nobody leads by a title. If you were to truly lead by a title, you wouldn't be leading before you got in a leadership position, right? You would be waiting around to have a title, and a title is not what makes you a leader. It's not what will make you better. It will not make you worse. Titles really are worthless without the work that you put into them. So I want you to wrap your brain around that nobody leads by title. It doesn't matter what your title is. That's why I say, like, if you're in a job, like you're working a 9 to 5 and you're not in this like leadership position, that doesn't mean you're not a leader. Leaders lead regardless of title. So that's one thing I want you to wrap your brain around tonight, is that you have been called to lead and you need to lead regardless of your title, no matter what. Okay. Here is something I want you to think about. Leaders are born out of desire for change. They're born out of purpose. They're born out of this drive to make a difference somewhere. If you really think about like the greatest leaders in history, right? I would argue that the majority of them did not set out with this goal of, I'm going to be a great leader, right? They didn't say like, that's what I'm going to do, be a great leader. They weren't going after a title. They were going after a purpose. They were going after this desire to make a difference, right? But we sometimes get so wrapped up in a title that we forget what it is we're actually supposed to be doing. And so tonight, I want you to remember what it is that you're supposed to be doing, that everything that you do should be driven by purpose. Everything that you do should be driven by the desire to change something or someone. Maybe that's you, right? And everything that you do should be driven by this underlying passion of, I want to make a difference. So this falls true for, say you're a mom, you're stay-at-home mama, and your husband goes off and works, and you have babes at home. You may think, I am the farthest thing from a leadership position. That is the biggest lie the enemy ever told you. You are in a huge situation to lead. And it's not because you have a title or don't have a title. It's because you have a desire, or should have a desire, for something to be different in your life, to raise great kids who love the Lord, who are passionate about people who are kind, right? That's what your leadership in your parenting should be driven by, right? Maybe it's in your business. Maybe you're not to a leadership position yet, but you want to be. but you're hanging on this title. Like, I have to have this title, right? I have to get to this place and then I'll be a leader. No, you have to act like a leader before you ever get the title. That's how you get the title. You get the title by choosing to act like a leader before anyone ever gives you a title, right? Oh, good, babe. That's great. Yes, that's exactly it. Great leadership is not about your role. It is always about the goal.
Ooh, that's good.
You like that?
That's nice.
I'll preach.
How to preach.
Okay. Okay. Again, great leadership is not about your role. It's always about the goal. And so I have to ask you tonight, what's the goal? What's the goal in your ministry? What's the goal in your marriage? What's the goal in your motherhood? What's the goal in your business? Not what's the role, not what's the title. What's the goal? Where are you going and why? And if you are stuck or you feel like, I wish I had more leadership. I wish that I was a better leader. I wish I was in a position to lead more people, to make a bigger difference. You have to ask yourself, what's my goal? What am I working towards? How am I going to get there, right? So maybe that's the first thing you need to write down tonight. What is the goal? What am I working towards? Because your leadership will never be about your title. It will not be about the role. It will be about the goal that you place on your life. Maybe they're all saying hi to you.
I know. I didn't want to interrupt you, though. Hey, guys.
So
why don't you give them an example of what that should look like, though? Because so many people, their goal is a title.
Yeah.
So what are some good examples of that to get their brains going?
So let's talk business. So if it's in business, let's say you have been really stuck on this, like a promotion, stuck on this title. Again, a title does not make you a leader. But what does make you a leader is your vision for where you're going and why. So for instance, let's say, so when I started my business, my whole goal, I desperately wanted to quit my job. I actually loved my job. I loved teaching. But I had a 9-month-old baby girl at home who I desperately wanted to be home with. And there was this deep desire in my soul to do whatever I had to do to reach that goal. And through the process of chasing that goal, my leadership ability was strengthened and grown. But my eye was very clearly on the prize of what I wanted. Now, once that goal changed, I saw that I did this thing and I was like, oh, other people could do this too. I could help other people if they wanted to quit their jobs. And so the goal became about making this bigger impact, right? It became about, can't just be about me. I want to make it about other people too, right? So I wasn't so caught on the title. I was caught more on the why of what I was doing. The goal was, I got to make enough money to quit my job, to replace my income, right? And those things are possible. Let's say it's even in your, let's say you're in a job. Maybe it's in a job you don't really love. Let's say you're working somewhere and you feel like, I don't really feel like I have a leadership position at this job, right? Maybe I'm at the bottom of the totem pole. Here's the thing, your impact and your leadership, again, it does not come from a role. It doesn't come from a title. It comes from your desire for change, your desire to make a difference in the place around you and the people around you. So maybe it's you have this heart to share Christ in the workplace. Maybe that's something that, like, you have friends that are broken and hurting that you work with, and maybe they're in higher positions at work than you, but that is the purpose behind what you do. You are a leader. You're in a leadership position, and it will never be your title. It will never be your role that qualifies you. It will be the way you encourage and uplift other people. It will be the difference that you put behind what you're trying to do. Does that make sense?
Also on that, I don't know the best way to say it, but okay, so Allison's goal was to be a stay-at-home mom. She liked her job, loved her job even in some ways. Yeah. But sometimes you have to give up things that you like or things that you love for things that you really, really want, or things. What do we say? We give up things we love.
We give up things we love for things we love even more.
That's it. So sometimes when you're looking at your goals, you really have to go through and figure out to get there, I might have to give up A, B, and C, or I might have to get out of my comfort zone, but that's okay. That's what you're supposed to do. And then what she said about the workplace, ultimately that's a really heavy thing. If you said, my thing is I need to share Christ with the people I work with, ultimately you just need to love them really well in spite of their flaws, in spite of their shortcomings, whatever it might be. That's one of the best ways you can show Christ to people, is to show his love for people. And so that's something that's a little more, when you try to swallow the whole pill of, I need to share Christ with everybody I know, you're like, oh my gosh, that is heavy. They're going to think I'm crazy. But if you just love people really well, in spite of all the things that they think you shouldn't love them for, that's showing them love in a way that Christ intended you to love people.
So I have a question for you. Like, let's say that you're a guy watching, and I don't know that there's a lot of guys watching. I know there's a few though.
Brandon's watching.
I know Brandon's watching. So let's say that you're a father.
Let's say I am.
No, you are. But this is an example.
It's like, that's a cool hypothetical because I can relate. Okay.
We're doing an example.
Okay.
So let's say that you are working again. Brian used to work in Highline car sales, and let's say that you're a salesman. And you're not necessarily in a leadership position. You're a salesman. You're a father.
Okay.
But how would you say that back then you thought, I have this leadership, like I'm in a leadership position? Like, would you consider yourself a leader then?
Depending on what stage in it, no, not really.
Yeah, but what was it that made you think that you, like, what was it that made you say what was it about that situation that never would have caused you to think that you were a leader?
So in a man's world, and it's similar, I think, some ways to women too, but as a man, I felt like there had to be these measurable things, this matrix of accomplishments for me to be a leader. Like I had to have management on my business card, or I had to, have something that people really looked up to me for, as opposed to just being a peer. And I don't agree with that looking back in a lot of ways, but yeah, I think a lot of times we think we have to have this title, and that's one thing about.
And your wife is the breadwinner, and like, what is your role then as a leader? You have no title, right? How would you classify yourself then as a leader? Like, what do you know to be true about that scenario?
As a man, working at home with a wife that's a breadwinner, for the most part, there's so many things about that are unnatural to us as guys, because we're called to, kill something, drag it home, and feed our family and that whole thing. But I think that ultimately, when we are at our best is when I'm filling in the gaps whenever need be, whenever I'm lifting her up and ultimately loving her for all the, like I said earlier, for any shortcomings, anything that she thinks she doesn't deserve love for, leading our children constantly, whether that means walking through the hard things and being with them through the fun things and all of those things. But I think I said something, I did a guy's video a while back, and I said that ultimately the things that you want to be remembered for in your family are the things that you need to lean into constantly. So when you think about, on my headstone, I wanted to say he was an incredible father. He was there for everybody around him. He loved his wife really well and was a great example to the men around him. Those kinds of things. No one ever says, I want to be salesman of the year, or, all these worldly accomplishments that we get caught up with as men sometimes are the things that we put a lot of our focus and our worry and our anxiety into. And ultimately, those aren't the things you want to be known for. Obviously, we have to provide, and depending on your situation, if your wife doesn't work or whatever, there's some stress involved with that. But providing your family with the bigger house or the bigger vacation or the nicer car, those aren't the things that you're ever going to want to be remembered for anyway. So just to continue to focus, write those things down. What do you want to be remembered for? And use that to encourage you every day. If you need to leave work a little bit early, you might miss a sale. There might be an opportunity you miss, but that extra hour or two at home around the table with your family, those are the kind of things that you want to be remembered for, not the extra sale.
Yeah. And as a father, as a husband, you have a huge role, a huge leadership role. No one's giving you this title, right, that says like anything specific, but your role as a leader there, I think, matters more than any other ever. Edna said, what do you do when people have stopped listening to you? We're going to get to that. It's a really good question. So I actually have some questions I want you to kind of mull over tonight, because here's the thing I'm not going to ever do. I'm not going to tell you, here are the 17 steps to being a great leader. leadership is about becoming. It's about becoming who you were made to be, and it's about walking in the truth of who you were made to be. So not only becoming that, but then walking forward in that truth. So what your leadership looks like should be different than what my leadership looks like. But I want to help you get there, and I want to help you really like dive through some questions tonight about what does it look like for me to lead well? What does it look like for me to lead my family, my business, in my faith, in my church, wherever you're in a leadership position, what does that look like? This is the place where you might want to get something out to write down some questions. If you are a human, all of these questions apply to you. I do not care about your title. I do not care about your role, because it is not a role that makes a leader. It's the goal. Okay.
If you're not a human, you can log off.
Yes. True.
No point in watching the rest of it, apparently.
Okay. So first of all, let's start with you. Who you are is ultimately who the people you lead will become.
Ooh.
That's Ethan Shockley. So who you are is ultimately who the people you lead will become. And the question is, do I want other people to become like me? Right? If you don't like that thought, if you don't like the thought of I'm helping people become like me, then it's time to do some work on you. And this is where we get stuck in leadership sometimes. We get stuck because we stop growing personally. And we don't deal with our own things. We don't deal with our own resentment, our own anger, our own unforgiveness. We don't heal ourselves. We don't get ourselves healthy, right? So who you are is ultimately who the people you lead are going to become. But that only happens through relationship. So when we talk about leadership, it is wrapped in relationship, and it has to be. It just, like, it cannot exist without relationship. So here's some things I want you to process through. First of all, people would rather follow a leader who is always real than one who is always right. Some of you have gotten so consumed with this thought that being a leader means you have to be right.
Or that you have to have the right answer all the time.
Or that you have to look this part.
Right.
Or that you have to appear like you know what you're doing. That you've forgotten how to be real. And if you can't be real, no one's going to be able to relate to you. How do we connect to other people? Through our weaknesses, right? Through the things that are hard, through the struggles that we have. That's how we form connections with people, not through all the amazing things, right? Yes, we have fun, high moments that are great experiences together, but we truly deeply connect with other people when we show our weaknesses, when we are vulnerable, when we choose to let other people see that we are not perfect. People would rather follow a leader who is always real than one who is always right.
Yeah.
Look at your leadership and ask yourself, have I put on this facade that I am always right? Have I made it seem like I haven't made any mistakes or that I have it all my crap together? Nobody wants that either. It's intimidating and unrealistic, right? I want to follow a leader who's real, not right. My pastor says that. Okay. So which one are you? Are you real or are you right? And it's something you need to examine and look at. Look at the words you've been writing to them. Look at the things you've been saying to your children, to your team members, to your coworkers. What are you saying? How are you leading them?
Now, there's a fine line there.
Okay.
Right?
I'm not sure. Go ahead. What do you think?
Well, being real all the time, sometimes we exaggerate the details to look for pity or to look for people to feel sorry for us. So ultimately, be careful when you start to walk that line. Tell them about kind of what you learned recently about the difference in transparency versus vulnerability.
That's good. So I'm a huge Brené Brown fan. And obviously, if you know anything about Brené Brown, she talks a lot about vulnerability and how powerful it is. Well, there's a difference between vulnerability and transparency. Vulnerability is something that vulnerability is the thing that connects us. It's the thing that you can say, I went through this thing. I walked through this really hard thing. And other people will connect to you because of it. But you also have this, like, here's where I am in the process, right? It may not be completely done, but you can already see, like,
the light at the end of the tunnel.
There's healing coming. There's, right? What's the other word I already?
Transparency.
I forgot what it was. Transparency is the thing that you are with a small few. Transparency is the thing that says, today sucked. I feel inadequate today. I feel I'm believing the lies in my head. I don't feel like I have it all together. I feel like the enemy's after me. Like, transparency is something that happens in a smaller group.
Yeah.
Transparency is the thing that you call your best girlfriends about, that you get on Marco Polo about with your very, very closest people. Transparency is not done yet.
Right.
Right. So when we share things, when we're open and transparent about things that are hard, oftentimes that's things that we're still processing through, that we're still working on. Now, the reason this is important is because I think we have this mixed up a little bit. Sometimes we throw our transparency out on social media and then people start unfollowing you, right? They stop, like, saying, I do not care, because you're blasting it to the many when transparency should be reserved for the few. And it's important. It's very important that you're transparent with a handful of people. But we want our transparency as we deal with all those things, right? Will turn into vulnerability that we can then share on the other side of it. That turns into sharing with your team. That turns into sharing with your children, right? It's kind of like saying, if my daughter came to me and she had seen us in an argument, right? Like, maybe we were having a disagreement about something and it wasn't yet resolved. And I'm still angry and fuming and I'm, like, frustrated, and right. And my daughter comes to me and asks me what's going on. And I just unload on my 11-year-old about how frustrated and angry and upset I am.
Because of how awful her dad is.
Right?
Yeah.
That's me being incredibly transparent, but that is not right. Mm-hmm. It's not right at all. It's the same thing that you guys do on social media sometimes, right? You just, like, things are still a mess and I'm just going to throw it out to the world. Nobody wants your transparency.
And people think they're doing that in the name of I'm being real.
It's different.
It's different.
So vulnerability would then be, this is what vulnerability looks like in that situation. We have an argument. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I go in the other room to cool down. And then when my daughter asks me what's wrong, I just tell her whatever. I give her a blanket statement, but I'm not giving her details. I'm not telling her about my anger,
disagree
right?
With things, but we love each other. Yeah.
So then we resolve things. And now we're on the side of vulnerability. And I can have a conversation with my 11-year-old about maybe about, here's what we were frustrated about, because I want my kids to know marriage is hard. We don't always agree. But in the heat of the moment, in the middle of it all, I'm not being completely transparent with my 11-year-old. Now, could I be completely transparent with him? Yes. In that moment.
What starts the fight.
Yes, right? Okay. So we want to work on being vulnerable in a leadership position, whether that's with your children, whether that's with your coworkers, your team, whatever that looks like, and being transparent with a small few.
Yeah. Now, this is a good point also. As a leader, you have to have people around you that can help carry you through those transparent moments. I mean, honestly, you will only as a leader be able to carry a heavy enough load that you have good enough people around you to help you carry it. So now this is something that doesn't happen naturally. This is something that some of you might have and some of you don't have. And that's something that maybe on your goal sheet, it should be to find a few more people that you can help lift up when they need it, and that they can help lift you up when you need it. And sometimes it's something, it might be in a women's group or a mom's group or a church group or somewhere where you just say, hey, I need a mentor, or I need a group. I need some people that I can walk with things through. And you might need to seek that out, because ultimately as a leader, there are going to be, for us, daily, sometimes, not daily, but at least weekly, things that we really need help walking through. And it's taken a while, but we've been very intentional about making sure we have some of those people that can walk through that stuff with us and help us carry that burden.
Right.
But ultimately, vulnerability is something you're coming out of, or something that you've come out of. And that's a really good thing to use to help others and to teach others. But when you're in the heat of battle, throwing all the details out there, bad-mouthing people, slinging mud, doing stuff like that, if you're still throwing arrows at somebody or something, it's not a healthy thing to share, because ultimately, like
good.
she said, people will unfollow you, but that's not even the worst part. The worst part is the advice you get in those instances. The only ones that your heart is ready to hear are the bad ones, or are the ones that aren't going to end healthy. And so that's just not okay to throw out there. We're not telling you to hide your feelings or not be real, but you need to have a group of people around you that know you, that trust you, that you trust, that can really speak some life into those situations, not social media. That's not okay.
Yeah, good. Hi, Joss. Okay, some other questions I want you to ask yourself about your leadership role. This is a good one. This is one I want you to process through. This is one that might be really good for you to just journal through, just start writing. You may not know the answer immediately, but I want you to dig and kind of get there. What should be different at the end of 2019 because of your role as a wife, as a mom, as a leader, as a team member? Fill in the blank, right? Whatever role you're in. What should be different at the end of 2019 because of your role? There's a million answers to this question, and I can't answer the question for you. And that's what's so essential about leadership. Remember, earlier on, we said, this is not about a role. This is about what is the goal, right? Leadership's not about a role. It's about a goal. And so if I can say, here's the goal, and here's what should look different by the end of the year, then I can start to structure my leadership around that, right? Another way to put it is, what do you want your role to have produced by the end of the year? So you're in a leadership position. You are working hard to be more, to lead your children better, right? What do you want that role, that title to have produced by the end of the year? What does that look like for you? Okay.
And on that, you can, sorry, we just had a child walk out. It's the oldest one. She's been reading it. When you break that down, Allie actually wrote it. You can say, what do you want your role as a wife? What do you want your role as a mother? What do you want your role as a leader? What do you want your role as, fill in the blank? But you can be a lot more specific on those things. It might say, as a wife, I want to be more in love with my husband at the end of 2019 than I am at the beginning of it. As a mom, it might be, I want my kids to say 2019 was the best year yet. As a leader, it might say, I want the people that want it, I want them to feel supported more this year than they did last year.
Yeah.
So whatever it might be. And then as you dive into those, as a mom, I want my kids to say it was the best year yet. Well, now you need to figure out their love languages. Like what feeds them? Do they want to travel? Do they want to camp out? Do they want to, watch all these old crazy movies with you that you always talk about?
Yeah.
What do they want to do as a wife? How can you serve your husband better in his love languages? As a leader, figure out the people that are working and the people that actually want something out of this business. Grab onto them and say, how can I serve you? If they don't know, walk through it with them. So, you might have to dive into those some, but really get down to the root of it and then make it happen. Write those things down and do it.
Yeah. Here's a really important question to ask yourself too. What are the most important parts? Title could have totally different answers to this question. What are the most important parts of your role? And honestly, that will depend upon your goal, right? So whatever the goal is for you, whatever you're working towards, that's going to determine what you consider to be the most important parts of your role. Maybe it's the community that you're building. Maybe it's the small moments that you're capturing with your kids. Maybe it's this conversation, something they set out because they didn't love the way something was. And so they set out to change something about it, right? That's what makes a great leader. So what are the most important parts of your role? They're going to be different for every single person. Okay. List them out and then start to prioritize them. How do these rank? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What are the top 3? These are the 3 things in my role that have to happen every day. That if I want to lead well in this area, these things have to happen. Maybe it's communication. Maybe it's fostering relationships. Maybe it's encouraging. Maybe it's equipping. I have no idea what it is for you. But whatever those parts of your role that you see the most important, you could have a list of 100 things that you could roll. But I want you to go through and prioritize them. What are the most important ones when it comes to my leadership role? And then here's another great question. what would you consider your biggest wins? So if I look at the next 6 months, if I could say by the end of June, what do I want to have said? These are the biggest wins for me. These are the biggest, this is exactly what I wanted to happen. What are your biggest wins? Is it getting a child to open up to you? Is it building up and equipping this woman that you see great potential in, right? If you can fast forward 6 months from now, you could say that would be a huge win for me. What would those things be?
And is something material or monetary down how it's getting there? You can't just say my biggest one would be if I move into a new house or if I promote to the title that I want, because ultimately, yes, those are good wins, but you need to break down how you're going to get there.
Yeah. So then the next question becomes, are your current goals supporting your biggest wins? Because sometimes we have these goals or we have these tasks that we think need to be done. But when we really start to ask ourselves these big leadership questions, like, what are my biggest wins? What are the most important parts of my role? What else? What do I want my role to produce by the end of the year? When you start to answer those questions and then you look at your task list and you look at the goals that you've set for the year, maybe they don't correlate at all. So we want to make sure that your goals are actually supporting what you consider to be your biggest wins in your role. Does that make sense?
Yeah, if your goal is to travel, but your wins you would consider promoting this person and this person, those don't correlate at all. So when you're looking at your dream board and you're like, yes, I'm going to go to the beach and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But then you have all these other things. You've got to make these things linear. And you can do that. There's some creative ways to do that. You can say, by earning a trip, I'm going to promote these people. And that's going to help me earn this trip, which in turn is going to help me travel. So there's a way you can get there, but you've got to make those things linear. Okay,
here's a couple more key things that I just want you, and honestly, this is me asking you to do the work. I'm giving you some boundaries here and some guidelines, but I need you to do the process of the work. Tense process, like this is you diving into what does leadership look like for me and how do I lead the best, right? Because remember, you are ultimately who you are is ultimately who the people you're leading will become. That goes for your children, that goes for your team members, that goes for your coworkers, goes for the people at church. Like it's a huge thing to wrap your brain around. Things I want you to think about when it comes to leading. Remember, we help lead others through relationship. We want to be the guide for people. We never put ourselves in a hero position. If you've been watching our Tuesday nights for a long time, we've talked a lot about by Donald Miller. It's an incredible book. I can't recommend it highly enough, but it talks a lot about how vital it is that we see ourselves as guides, not as heroes. We are guides leading people to where they want to go, right? Whether that's in marketing, whether that's in business, whether that's with your children, you don't want to be the hero. You want to help guide your children to become their own heroes. Same thing is true with your team. You don't want to be their hero. If you are their hero, you will never build other leaders. If they see you as the hero, you are not building leaders. And if you're growing a team, you want to be building leaders. You have to see, they should see you as the guide. You are the guide, bringing them along the path. They get to become the hero of their own story. Be the guide. It's so vitally important. Get into their world. Ask questions. The way we build relationship is through questions. So I hear sometimes you guys say, especially in the business world, like, I don't know what they want, or I'm frustrated because they don't want to build a business. I think sometimes it's not that they don't want to build a business, it's that you're not into their world enough to ask the right questions. So when we can get into people's worlds and we can start asking the right questions, then we can learn about who they are. That relationship starts to build that leadership, and then that our influence grows, helps us become the guide, lets them become the hero of their own story. Ask the right questions, okay?
The greatest question you can ask most of your people when you're trying to figure out what their goals are is why. And if you keep asking why until it gets to a point that brings them to tears, that's when you've got something.
Yep.
So when someone says, I want to get promoted to whatever title, Say why. Well, because then I feel like I'll make enough money. Well, why? Well, because my daughter goes to this one school and I really want her to go to this private school. Why? Well, because she's getting bullied at this other school and they don't allow it at this other one. Why? Because she comes home crying every day because she's getting bullied and I just can't stand it anymore. Why? Because I want my daughter to grow up in a place where she feels loved and adored and respected and all the things. So you keep asking why. Sure, the first goal they had is okay, but you've got to bring them to a place to where they literally can't hold their tears back. And if they're there, that's the right place. And then you dive in and say, okay, write that down.
Yeah.
Focus on that. And that's going to drive us forward.
When I think about why I wanted to grow my business, to quit my job, it wasn't just because I wanted to be home with my baby. I did. But the same year that I started my business, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I felt this mounting pressure as a working mom and now a daughter of, of a parent going through chemotherapy that I didn't get to be, I wasn't there when she went through her first chemo treatment. I wasn't there for any of it because I had to work. And I just remember thinking, I don't want to live like this. Like I don't ever want to have to be in a place where I can't support my mom the way that she needs to be supported. Yeah, I wanted to be whole. I wanted the freedom to be able to say my family matters more than this paycheck or this job. So when you can get to the core of what is really driving somebody, what's the passion, and then what's stopping them? Sometimes, so often it's fear. We're all afraid. We are all afraid. I say the things all the time. What are they going to think? They're going to say, who does she think she is? Right? Like there's all of these statements that run through my head over and over again about my inadequacy and what people are going to think about me. Everybody has those feelings. And we have to help team members and our kiddos delve through those fears and work through them to help them get to a place where they can say, yes, I am scared of emotion. And yeah, I'm kind of worried about what people are going to think. But more than that, I don't want my baby to come home crying every day. More than that, I want to be able to go to my mom's chemotherapy treatments. More than that, I want to get my husband out of a job that he hates, right? It has to be about the big things, and you cannot get to the big things if you're not asking questions. Get into their world and ask questions.
And then once you know those answers, then like she said, then you're the guide.
Yeah.
So how to speak someone's language and how to drive them, it's not hard after that. Then it's just continuing to lean into that. So if you ask those questions I asked, when you follow up with that person, you say, how's your daughter? How's school going? And if it's getting better or it's worse or whatever it might be, you say, okay, what are we doing to change it? And then you start to walk them through because you know the why. Where if before you had just jumped on, it was a title jump. Well, then you're saying, well, how close are you to making it? Well, making it, and we all know, once you make a title, it doesn't maybe mean all these other things change unless you know that's exactly what you want to change. So now you know their why. You really know it. You've asked why so many times that it brings them to tears and you can't even ask it anymore because it's gotten all the way down to something that hurts them enough to make them want to make a change. And then you lean into that and you help them move forward.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing too, when you are the guide and you have asked the right questions, you can over and over again when things get hard, because things get hard as a parent. Like it's hard to be a good mom. It's hard to do the right things over and over again, right? Sometimes we don't want to. Sometimes we want to be lazy. Sometimes we don't want to read with our kids, right? But when we can step into saying, no, this is why. This is what I ultimately want for my kids. This is what I ultimately want out of my business. When I can say those things with confidence, then it's a lot easier for someone else to come to me and when I'm frustrated or when I'm discouraged, say, doing it. Remember where we're going, right? It's not about a role. It's about this desire to change. It's about the difference that you're going to make. Okay.
The other thing on that too, someone just said, getting over my hurdles of not being intelligent enough, not being strong enough. I'm not. So here's the thing about that. I'm a we both are big believers that the situations that you get put in every single day, you are the only person that's supposed to be in that situation. If you're not smart enough, if you're not strong enough, whatever the case might be, God has still placed you in that position that day to be the person that speaks into that moment of that person's life, whether you're equipped or not. So to pass up an opportunity to ask someone why until it brings them to tears, whether you know the answer on how to take them there or not, that's your opportunity. And that's your chance to use the experience life and the story that you have that only you can tell to use to build somebody up in the ways that. So by believing that you're not enough and whatever the case might be, that's a lie. That is not true. And that's something that you need to quit telling yourself.
Yeah.
And if you need to go back, was it last week when you talked about the lies? And you can't tell yourself those lies.
Yeah.
As soon as the sentence start off as I can't, or I'm not able to, stop right there. It doesn't matter what it is, and it doesn't matter how much you believe it. By speaking that into life, you're just feeding that lie. You've got to turn around and say, I might be the only person that has a chance to speak to this person. And I might be the only person to ask this woman why. And I promise you, if you start asking people why until it brings them to tears, you'll hear people say, no one's ever asked me that, or I've never really thought about it like that. And then that's when the leadership comes out of you that's always been inside of you. And then out of hearing that, it builds you up, and then you start to become the leader that God always intended you to be.
A lot of people don't have big dreams for their lives because nobody's ever believed that they could do anything, including themselves. And so when you're in any sort of position to speak life and truth into somebody, to encourage and equip somebody, what a freaking gift you have.
Yeah.
You might be the only person who speaks that truth into them. And so sometimes, when you have people who say like, I could never do this. Like I'm like, this is where I'm going to be my whole life. And that's fine. A lot of that comes from the things that they've been told their whole entire lives. Yeah. So know that the words that you say and encouragement that you give are not falling on deaf ears. It just may be the first and second and third time someone has heard things that amazing and that uplifting and that encouraging, when other people have had it spoken over them dozens and hundreds and thousands of times. Yeah. Keep saying the things that change people. Keep asking the questions, because all of those things matter.
So they say it takes speaking a positive thing over somebody 7 times to overcome the one time the negative was spoken into them. So sometimes it takes you telling somebody something, or that they're capable of something, over and over and over again, just to overcome the lies that other people have told them. So just keep speaking it. Keep speaking life into people. Yes, you can. You are enough. You will get through this. Whatever it is, keep speaking it, and it will happen.
I just feel like we could end there. We'll be done. But I do have one other thing I want you guys to think about. You have to teach people to think the way that you think. This has been a struggle for me in our business for sure, because I don't think like everybody else. If everybody else is doing it, I'm not entirely sure that it's a great idea. Like, that's the way I think. Like, I think, but there's got to be a smarter way. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a more efficient way, right? It's so important that you ask the right questions. Sorry, he just answered his phone. That was so random. And so I'm like, who did he answer his phone for? I don't know. That's okay. Teach them to think the way that you think. Remember, in a leadership position, who you are is ultimately who the people you lead will become. Is that what you want?
Space heater.
Their heater is it?
Upstairs.
Oh, so do I need to come stay here? Okay,
no.
Sorry. Becoming is better than being. I was saying that might be my first tattoo.
That's good.
I don't want to get stuck being. I want to be constantly becoming. And we're never going to arrive, right? So we have to be committed to continuing to grow, to continuing to become who we were made to be, right? I told you guys several Tuesdays ago, like probably back in the summer, that there was this incredible violinist on America's Got Talent. That's what it is, right? A violin?
Yes.
Incredible violinist.
Insane.
His name is something King or King. Anyways, he said something that shook me to my core that I think is so true. He said, we have to fight for who we're supposed to become. And I think that's true in every single area of our life. And not only do we have to fight for who you're supposed to become.
Brian King Joseph.
Brian King Joseph.
Great
If you
name,
haven't
Brian.
seen him yet, when we're done here in a minute, just go Google it. Brian King Joseph.
So quick backstory, I
Fantastic.
won't ruin it, but he had, what did he have? Some type of degenerative
He has some
disease.
kind of like, he's
where
losing
he's
feeling in his fingers.
Losing his feeling. So he shouldn't even be able to play violin anymore.
He plays by memory.
But he plays by memory. He's still got it, and it's the coolest thing ever.
Anyways, they did a little cameo one time, like before his performance, and he said the words, "I believe we have to fight for who we're supposed to become." And I just thought, yeah, we do. Yes, we do. And not only do we have to fight for who we're supposed to become, but we have to help other people fight for who they're supposed to become.
Yeah.
Our children, our friends, our coworkers, our spouses, our team. We have to help them fight, right? Because we're all becoming, or we all should be becoming. Some of us get stuck just being, but becoming is always better than being.
Honestly, I feel like the best thing we can do as leaders, if we do nothing else, is help other people reach a higher potential than what they're in right now. You have to ask questions. You have to dig to the root of it. You have to find out why. And you have to keep asking why until it brings them to tears. And ultimately, you will do that.
Your leadership has to be centered around a goal or a desire to make a difference. It cannot be centered or focused or consumed with a title. It's not why you're here. A title, a role, none of that matters. A goal and your desire to change something, your desire to make something better, your desire to make a difference in the world, that's what's going to change people. That's what's going to change you, and that's what's going to change the people around you. Leadership is in evolving and constantly growing and changing things. And it does not happen easily, and it does not happen without hard work, and it does not happen without becoming. If you're stuck, or if you're confused, or you don't feel equipped, or you don't feel like you are the leader that you want to be or should be, step into becoming again. Become a better version of yourself tomorrow than you were today. Start to heal the things that need to be healed. Start to grow the things that need to grow. Start to let go of the things that need to be gone. Become the best version of you, and then help other people become the best version of themselves.
Like she said earlier, people are going to become what you are. So first you have to start being the person that you want others to become. If you're working or overworking so much to try to help all of these people that you're exhausted, you're not helping anybody ultimately. You've got to figure out ways to work within the things that you're gifted and talented to do. And that might just be asking why until someone cries. That might be seeking out the 5 or 6 or 7 best leaders in your organization to really pour into, not ignoring the rest, but giving the majority of your time to the ones that are doing the most. That might be reaching out to the people that you just feel a connection with and saying, how are you? How can I help you? Whatever that might be, but be the person that you want your people to be. And ultimately, someone said earlier, how do I know if I'm making a difference? There are things that you're not going to know this side of heaven, whether you made a difference or not.
Absolutely.
But I promise you, if you wake up every day and say, what can I do to be better? What do I need to do to be more structured, more organized, be a better mom, be a better wife, be a better leader in my community? And how can I lead these people the way they need to be led to help them get to that why, whatever it is? If you ask yourself those questions and you step into those things, then I promise you, you're making a huge, huge difference.
Allison, this is a good question because I'm sure some people are saying, where do they start? And it's the thing about leadership that's tricky. The starting point for every single person is different because where you're at, I would bet that all 85 of you currently watching, 81, good Lord, that was a quick drop.
4 people are coming out.
Bet that all of you in the moment of watching are in different places.